We're looking at some of the images of that Mass that was held earlier in St. Peter's Basilica. I know you weren't inside the Basilica to attend that personally, but you were just telling me you were watching it on the big screen. Just what's going through your mind as you see the cardinals gathered and praying before they begin their task, and what you were thinking as you watched that Mass?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that it's all grounded in prayer. We tend to kind of look at the conclave as a bit of an election and political theater drama, if you will. But for the cardinals, it's all a prayerful moment. That starts with the election for the Holy Roman Pontiff that they had this morning, the Mass for that. And then as they even go into the Sistine Chapel, it will be a very prayerful moment, a Veni Creator, Come Holy Spirit, the music that plays as they go into the Sistine Chapel. There's a reason they wear a cassock. It's a garment that indicates that they're in a prayerful moment. So this isn't a sort of a political convention where people are running around talking to each other. It's a very kind of moment of prayer for them that is serene, and they have to really reflect on the task ahead.
We've talked in these throughout the morning and certainly beforehand about how this conclave, because of its makeup and a number of different factors, is being called a conclave like no other. What is your perspective on that, and why it might make things a little bit even more unpredictable on this occasion?
Well, first and foremost, there's going to be 133 cardinal electors, and that's more than they've ever had. Usually that number is under 120, but the Pope has the prerogative to increase the number if he likes, so he's done that. Some of the seats of the cardinals facing the Last Judgment, they will actually face the Last Judgment, Michelangelo's powerful fresco there, so that's a change. And then also, I think the diversity of the College of Cardinals. 80% of these members were appointed by Pope Francis, and you've got a diverse college like no other time in past history, where Oceania, Africa, Asia are more widely represented than ever before.
And in terms of impact of all of that, I mean, what does history tell us? As you say, 108 of the 133, so the vast majority of these cardinals were appointed by Pope Francis. Do they always elect someone like the predecessor who chose them, or do they depart? Do they go the contrary route?
Yeah, it really can vary. I mean, we saw after St. John Paul II, after his death, Pope Benedict was elected, who was a very different approach, different style, not as outgoing and charismatic, more introverted and thoughtful. People say you would go to see Pope John Paul II, you would go to listen to Benedict. Pope Francis was a bit of a surprise. People thought he might be too old, elected at 76. It'll be interesting to see if the cardinals decide to elect a pontiff who is on the younger side of things, sort of 60 to 70-ish. Or, a pope that, similar to the last couple conclaves, is in their late 70s, which means a shorter papacy too. So the geography is also a factor as well. Lots of things come into play when they're considering, and of course, obviously they're praying about it. We say, come Holy Spirit, for a reason, because we believe as Catholics, the Holy Spirit already knows who the Pope is. The cardinals are just carrying out the technical process of doing that, so to speak.
It's interesting. I've been following, obviously, Vatican News and statements from the Vatican Press Office of late, and they were quoting the discussions from some of the general congregational meetings that the cardinals have been holding every morning leading up to today. And one of the articles talks about how they discuss the profile of the future pope, and I'll just bring some of it in. A figure who must be present, close, capable of being a bridge and a guide, of favoring access to communion for disoriented humanity marked by the crisis of the world order, a shepherd close to the real life of the people. So that's how the Vatican Press Office described, again, some of the cardinals' discussions. That would seem to match in large part Pope Francis and how he lived his papacy. What does that tell you in terms of whether they have a direction already established?
Well, I think the idea of the church as a field hospital, which Pope Francis so eloquently used throughout his papacy, is something that we're are going to have with a new pope, regardless of who that is. As Catholics, we're called to reach out not just inward to those who are involved and active in the church, but people who are on the periphery. Pope Francis did that so well. We need a pope that will be able to do that, and I can't imagine electing someone who wouldn't want to have that kind of a dimension. I think another thing to remember is some of the issues that we face in the West may not be the number one issues for other parts of the world where the Catholic Church is either growing or thriving, or maybe very quiet and kind of diminished, in the sense of we've got parts of the world where it's still illegal to be a Christian, or you're persecuted or killed for your beliefs. So for cardinals from those parts of the world, religious freedom might be a prominent issue for them. So depending on the geography where the cardinals come from, that's why those general meetings this past week or 10 days have been so important, to hear the reality of the church, not just in their part of the world, but throughout the world.
Neil, thank you. You've given us lots to think about as we watch the cardinals begin their work. I appreciate the time, and I know you'll be with us through these next couple of days. So I'll speak to you again. Thanks for this morning.